Hello, everyone. My guest today is Greg Todd. He's a physical therapist, serial entrepreneur. He's a business coach, worked for WTA Tour for 5 years, and decided to open his own clinic. Scaled to 2 locations, generating 30 million in revenue. He's also a Smart Success healthcare coach. It's a company that helps 19 plus specialties to create profitable online businesses. And his goal is to empower 10,000 healthcare providers to break free from burnout and build fulfilling, financial free careers. Welcome to the show, Greg. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Dimitri. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
So tell us, what inspired you to become a physical therapist?
What inspired me to become a physical therapist was stability. That's really it. I wanted stability. I did not want to be like my dad. My dad came here. We're immigrants. We came here from Jamaica in 1978. My dad went after the American dream, and there were many highs and many lows. So I specifically wanted to be a physical therapist so I wouldn't have to deal with the highs and the lows. I always equated instability with making money and financial, stress with breaking up relationships. So that's from what I saw as a child. And so physical therapy back in 1995, when I graduated from high school, was one of the most in-demand jobs. And I just assumed in demand means stability. So I went after it. I became a physical therapist, started school, PT school in 1997, graduated at the end of 2000. And that really is the main reason. Now, did I love sports? Yes. Did I, have a major interest in orthopedics? Yes. My mother was a transcriptionist for an orthopedic surgeon in Plantation, Florida. So I love all that, but I was looking for the stability. That's what I was looking for. So that's what made me become a physical therapist. And I would have never thought I would be an entrepreneur, but here we are.
Amazing. That's great success. So tell us, you worked for 5 years, WTA Tour, right? And it seems like you got burnt out, and that's what inspired you to start your first clinic. Is that correct?
Yeah. So there's a little bit more to that story. So I was working, like, my goal and my dream was always to work with professional athletes. And I was able to do that by year 2 of me being a physical therapist. So I wasn't just working on the WTA Tour. I had a full-time job with a company called Core Rehabilitation. So I was seeing anywhere between 18 to 25 patients a day. And I was working with the WTA Tour players. And so there were times where I would work a 11, 12, 13-hour shift. And then if the players needed me to work with them, after I finished at 8 p.m., I would go to, their house and go work with them. There was times where they wanted me to go to a big tournament with them. I would take my vacation time and I would go to a tournament. So the reality is that I did burn out. I burned out because I was trading all of my time for money, and I wasn't in control of how much money my job was giving me. They gave me a salary, and if I needed to work 60, 70 hours a week, that's what I did based on a 40-hour per week, salary. So there came this time that even though I was treating clients, that was my dream situation, and that I'm working with some of the top players in the world, I realized that my life wasn't getting better with me actually getting better, because Aetna doesn't care about if I'm working with WTA Tour players. Cigna doesn't care about that. Blue Cross doesn't care about that. And I realized that I'm probably going to have to do something different if I want to be able to get other things besides working with professional athletes, like more time, more money, more freedom to do things the way that I wanted to do it. So it was a combination of WTA, ATP Tour players, and working full-time for a company that made me realize I'm never going to be able to get more time working in this way, in the way that they're paying me, in the way that I'm doing things. And that's what spurred me on to become an entrepreneur.
Absolutely. I think it resonates with a lot of people that are looking to start their clinic. One of the issues, and I personally think it's like a swamp, right? Where you have the benefits, the salary, days off, vacation, and it's hard to trade that, right? But I think the ultimate freedom of controlling your own time, right? Controlling how much money you're going to make. That's what people are looking for in our field. And it's important to take that first step. So tell us when you realize you don't want to do that anymore, right? You don't want to treat 13 hours a day, right? You don't want to kind of trade your time for money. Uh, Take us to the first 3 months of you starting your clinic. What hurdles did you overcome, right? How did you get your first 5 patients through the door? Uh,
Yeah. I mean, it was a nightmare. It was a total nightmare. I wish initially I was like, why did I do this? I think there's a couple things, and I will bring you through the first, 3 months. The first 3 months were terrifying because I did not have the skill set. I made that decision, Dimitri, off of arrogance. I made it off of arrogance. I think a lot of people make that decision to go into business for themselves through straight clinical arrogance. And here's what I mean by that. I was working with the number 1, number 4, number 17, number 23 ranked player in the world. Okay. So I thought, and then on top of it, I was doing all of these continuing education stuff. I had my OCS in my board certified orthopedic certified specialty. I had my certified strength and conditioning specialty. I was going to school at the time to become a manual therapy trained provider through the University of St. Augustine. I had done 550 CEUs by year 5.
wow, that sounds impressive. All these
They,
sort of
kinda. Now here's the thing. That was very, very, very deceptive because I truly thought that if you add those things, plus all the relationships that I had with physicians, and I had a non-compete agreement. So I had to leave the area. I had to be out of a 10, 15 mile radius for 1 year. And I thought that, well, look, I'm working with all these top people in the world. When I come back, everybody's going to come to my clinic. So I was willing to put everything on the line. And what I mean by everything, I'll give you the numbers. I took out a loan of $180,000. I took it out because we had that much equity in my home, even though I didn't really pay off anything on the home. This is back in 2005, right? So you remember house prices kind of skyrocketed before we had to crash at 2008, right? 2007 to 8. So I had an inflated value of my home, and I was able to pull an equity loan off of my house to open up my clinic and to do a few 2 other investments. Okay. And so I took out $180,000. I thought for sure my clinic was going to crush it at the time. Okay. The reality is that all those doctors that said they would send to me, they didn't send to me. I didn't understand it at the time. I'm like, are people out to get me or something? I didn't understand marketing and psychology and top of mind to people and me not giving value to people. I didn't get that. And so the first 3 months were terrifying because all of the business that I thought I was going to get, I never got. And I had this $5,800 per month lease of a place that was sitting empty. So I started to virtually beg. I went from clinic to clinic, from business to business, and I was begging, please, I'm not going to be able to eat this month. Can you send me patients? And I didn't understand what client acquisition actually looked like because I never had to do that when I was with Cora. I truly thought, and this is what my arrogance got me, I thought that everybody was coming for me when I was working at those places. So why wouldn't they continue to come work with me? That's not how it works. Cora, that business, was who was getting those clients. Yes, those clients were happy when they saw me. Yes, they thought I was a great therapist, but I wasn't involved in the marketing aspect of it. I wasn't really involved in a client acquisition. Maybe I had some responsibility in me being able to retain clients or maybe helping people make the decision to become repeat clients if they needed our services. But I never did that part. And I it was only until I had my own clinic and I realized that no one was there to give me that, that people really don't care about how good you are as a clinician. They care about what is in it for them. And so those first 3 months were were terrifying, but obviously I ended up figuring it out.
Wow, that's a hell of a story. And I think, again, it resonates with a lot of people that are listening because starting a clinic, right, you have to provide a win-win situation for referral sources, right? Something they return to them, right? Either good care or maybe a patient in return or a promise of a patient in return, because that just take doesn't work. And
Yeah.
I've been through it. I know all about marketing and how painful it is, right? Going door to door, advertising your service, not getting anything in return. I mean, I know the pain. So how did you end up getting the first five patients? Do you remember?
Yeah. Yeah. There was one guy. It was a pain management physician who did send me one client. And he sent me that client, and I'm glad things were really tough in those first, couple months, because that one client, I said, "Hey, listen, I got one client from this guy. I am going to create the most exceptional experience for this client." And basically, um, for me, that's what I did. And I created, it's not that I just got good outcomes. That's not enough. You have to create an experience to where that client, when they go to their circle of influence, which is their coworkers, their colleagues, their friends, their family, however you make them feel, they want to tell people about it. And so that client ended up being client number one. I ended up getting client number two through another physician referral. Client number three and four was from client number one, and client number five was from client number two. So that's how I got my first five clients. My first five clients were three of the five were from word of mouth. That's what happened. Okay. And so I do think that most people that are looking to start a business and to grow a business and to do it at a small level, I think that if you do give a great experience. Now, I notice I didn't say you do great care. Great care is not enough today. A great experience with a result can get people talking about you. And if there's nothing that's talk worthy, well, you're not going to get the best marketing tool there is, which is word of mouth. You're not going to get that. And so for me, that's how I got my first five clients. And now, in order for me to grow it and scale it and have multiple locations, I had to add uh, more marketing levers besides, just creating a great experience. I need to have more ways to get leads. I'd have more ways to get client acquisition. I'd have more ways to get clients to on repeat to tell people about us. And then that created its own kind of grassroots, virality.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. I agree. Word of mouth is the best referral source. Uh, Having doctor referring. I mean, I'm a big proponent of doctor referrals. I know physical therapy. A lot of clinicians are against like getting referrals from doctors, and I hear this all the time in groups. I think any referral is a great referral. There's nothing better than word of mouth, but in order to get to word of mouth, you need to get initial referrals, which you did. You've done it successfully. You ended up getting those from pain management physician. So now, again, I want to talk a little bit about your clinic. So the first five patients, so you finally got those. What systems did you implement in your business in the first 6 months, and when did you make your first hire?
Yeah. So I think I made my first hire at month four, and it was an administrator. It was just, and when I say administrator, I didn't want to make it sound, dramatic. It was somebody to answer the phones, to take, to do all the intake. I was basically doing that myself, and there were times where if I had back to back patients or I had too many things going on, I would forward the phones to my wife, who was basically with the babies at home, right? And so I think it was month four is where I remember I hired this girl named Brooke, and she, started scheduling patients, when there was, some downtime, she'd help me in the back, clean the tables, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that happened around month four. So what were the systems that I put in play? Well, when Brooke came on, I had to put systems in play in how we were going to communicate with potential patients when they reach out to us. So my first system that I put in play was giving her uh, a, I guess a level of scripts, if you want to call it, on this is how I need you to communicate with potential clients because you are going to be the first touch point of them making the decision of are they going to use us or not. Now, in our case, Dimitri, we took insurance, so we just had to have those conversations of you know, you know, we do take your insurance, we don't take your insurance. Here's why. This is what's going on here. Try to redirect the conversation to the pain points that they're having. If they were nervous, if they had issues, if they weren't sure about the investment, da 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 da. You know, really helping them overcome the objections so that they can make that next move, which was to come in for an initial consult with me. Right. So that was the first set of like systems that I put into play. And then, one of the big things is just making sure that the process is easy for them when they come in to go from intake to, being a customer of mine. Right. And so I put in systems first for things that Greg wasn't doing. And every single time I added some type of service or some type of process that Greg didn't do, that was the next system that was in play. So now, if I had to do it all over again, what I would have done is I think I could have made that process happen so much faster. At my peak, I probably had 30 employees at a time, right? And so this is over, 3 clinics at the time. So if I had to do it over again, I would have created systems for how I was treating. I would have created systems for how is going to be the client experience when they're working with a therapist. I think my biggest issue is because I put in systems for my front desk so early, I never had a problem with scaling and recycling through people at the front desk because I had no systems for many years clinically because it was all up here. I had to rely on hiring rock stars to be able to come into the clinic and people that could kind of handle it on their own. And so, I struggled there for probably about 3 years too many, where I really could have grown it and scaled it a lot faster and not put as much stress on my body and on my mind.
Yeah, definitely. It makes sense. One of the issues we also see with smaller clients is ability to set up systems from the get-go,
Yeah.
right? They create a process that's not written out, right? Because they're one-man operation, they're front office staff, they're treating therapists, they're a biller. And then when time to hire, they have to kind of hire that person. That person makes a million mistakes. And then they have to, sometimes that person will leave. And then the second person makes those mistakes again. So processes in place from day one are the most detrimental, I think, things when it comes to business. And a lot of people, I think, missing that point. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And, today there's no reason, there's no excuse for it. Today, like before, this is what I did. I'm just thinking like, like as you're asking me this question, I'm like, okay, well, when did I start this? Well, this is what I did. I started to like write down every single thing I was doing from evals, everything I was doing for treatments, my thought process, this, that, da, 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 da. And it probably took me about six months to really build out a solid clinical system. Once you kind of get going with it, it's like you have momentum. So you just want to start doing everything. I mean, I did everything from exactly how I process through evals for every single potential problem that could come into our clinic to how you actually load the laundry. Okay. Like every single thing that you could think of. But today we have AI. Today, if you could just turn on your phone and turn on the voice message and just let it record you and then just drop it into an AI software like a Chat GPT or Claude or whatnot, you could just say, just spit out the system for me. And then it's done. Like there's no reason why anyone shouldn't be able to have systems, their systems, not some cookie cutter systems, but their systems. As long as they're willing just to hit record, just do what you're doing anyways. And then just throw it into a system to let it do the entire system process. This used to be such a problem. There's no excuse today.
Yeah, I absolutely. It saves, I don't know, 90% of your time now on setting up SOPs.
Yep.
This is something that was always a big time taker from a business operator. Now you don't even have to do that. I totally agree with you. Greg, so now I want to talk about, so we talked about marketing a little bit. What reports do you currently run for your clinics on a monthly basis? Can you give me a top 5?
Yeah. So I call it the 5 C's. Let me just talk about from a marketing standpoint. So the 5 C's are how are we capturing attention? So I want every single month to know how much impressions are we getting on our clinic, whether that is through social media, that is through being on platforms like this, being on podcasts, et cetera, et cetera. So we call that the capture. And that is the amount of impressions or reach or views that we are getting on any platform, whether it is a marketing event or it is something that we do on social media. So we're tracking that. We're also tracking how many contacts are coming in every single month. And that's basically leads. How many people are paying us with their contact information before they pay us with money? Because when we see there's a lot of leads, we can at least have a pretty good predictor that this eventually will turn into some type of cash flow, right? The third thing is conversations. How many conversations are we having with prospective clients, with our community every single month, right? And those conversations could be conversations that we're having via text. Those conversations could be conversations that we're having over the phone with clients. Conversations creates clarity. Conversations lead to conversions, okay? So capture attention, we're tracking that through impressions. Contacts, how many leads are we getting? Conversations, how many conversations are we having? And by the way, that's new conversations and two-way conversations, right? I don't just talk to somebody and then they just become a client, right? And so we're tracking those 3 things. Then we're also tracking calls. And calls is how many times have we actually been able to offer our services or our offerings to people. If you don't offer it, nobody can buy anything. So you can have a whole bunch of people coming in the door, but we have to have some level of offerings. And I know this is going to sound simple, but it really is like the fastest way to be able to make more money is just to present more offerings to people, right? Most people want to buy stuff. They just might not want to buy the thing you offered them. So what I realize is that I just got to figure out what is it that people actually want. Maybe they don't want a full plan of care. Maybe they, this, that, da, da, da. So that forces me to have to create new offerings, but you gotta like we have to track how many times are we actually offering to people. And then the other thing we're tracking is customers and how many customers are finishing out their plan of care and then turning into repeat customers. I'm not a big discharge guy. I truly believe that in order to have a sustainable business today, you have to have a high lifetime value for your client. And for those that are listening, you're like, wait, what does that mean? It means that the more a client is worth to you, the more you can actually do step 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So the more clients are worth, the more I don't have to spend more money to get a new client because this client used to be worth $500 to me, but now they're worth $5,000. Well, that gives me more money to be able to serve the client with a higher level experience, but also to get new clients. And the person that could spend the most usually is the one that wins, right? I mean, usually, and that's assuming that we're all treating the people fairly equal, right? So if you're treating people really good, which most people are good at that, then you have more, and people would work with you if you just offered them more stuff. Then you have more money that you could pile back in to be able to keep the business running and then eventually running on autopilot. So you don't have to rely on, oh my gosh, I just need word of mouth. Word of mouth. Word of mouth is fantastic. It's a great amplifier, but you need to have consistent flow coming in. And if you don't want to kill yourself, you got to do that with money through advertising. And that only happens by getting clients to be worth more to you. So those are the 5 main things that we're tracking. Now there's other things that we do track. How many visits are you seeing per client? That's important. I mean, there's a bunch, but here I'll give you like, a few more. We sell other products at our clinic as well. So how many people are going into those products? Um, uh, how many evals for the ones that are therapists? How many evals are they seeing? So those are some of the, important things. Those are things that are therapists. Those are things that your team has control over. And we need to make sure that everybody understands that, hey, look, this is what separates you. If you're a therapist, like you've got to crush it with evaluations, right? Yes, you do treatments as well, but you got to crush it with this. This is what makes you stand out. If you're a therapist assistant, hey, like you being able to navigate someone through their plan of care, like this is your bread and butter here, right? So just making sure that everybody knows like what their role is and the thing that they just need to be great at, and that's really it.
Yeah, absolutely. And what marketing strategies do you currently use? So you mentioned paid ads, I'm assuming, right? Because you said impressions. So you're focusing on Google and like Facebook, or there are other revenues
Yeah,
that
I
you're
mean, so
targeting?
so paid ads is one part of three things that we do, right? For us, all about awareness. Paid traffic is a third of that formula. The other two is partnerships and organic content. And of the two, partnerships is probably the most important one, right? So partnerships is understanding this. You have a client, you have a client type that typically comes to your practice. I understand we might see people, some young kids, you might see some older, but you kind of have your ideal client that comes into the clinic. This is where you start. You have to ask yourself, who else serves those ideal clients? Who else takes their money for value? Your big 45 should be 45 people, 45 businesses, 45 providers, 45 community groups collectively, not 45 for each. I mean, the goal is to get to 45 each, but 50, 15, 15, or 20, 15, 10, or right, just 45 that are those people should be your customers, but they don't know you. So instead of having to start from scratch, build a relationship with 45 people that have your ideal customers, but they're not serving your ideal customers in the way that you could serve the ideal customers. Build a relationship with them, and then they will introduce you to their customers. Like, guess what's happening right now? Look, I'm on your podcast, right? Okay. You guys probably figure out, hey, I want to have Greg Todd as part of whether you know the Big 45 or not. It's like, hey, let me bring him on, right? I'm here. I do the podcast with you. I bring value to your audience. Cool, right? Now your audience is people that have never heard of me that now know of me, right? And when I share this with my audience, there's going to be people that have never heard of you guys, that never heard of Hello Nope, and now they're going to know you. That's a big 45. Like everybody should be doing that. That's like the easiest way to be able to, especially if you have more months than money. Okay, if you don't have a lot of money, you do that, right? And that's a great way to be able to get clients, right? And then organic is going to be different based on who your client base is, right? If you got a younger client base, is a good chance that they spend a lot of their time on social media versus cable TV, right? If it's an older client base, it's a good chance that they like to go out more. Maybe they're at markets, they're at different expos, et cetera, et cetera. So where is your audience? And you meet them there so you can create a relationship, an organic connection. So it's either social media or it's not on social media, but those three things, like everybody needs to be focusing their efforts somewhere in between those three.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you do any marketing that's not digital? Uh, I'm talking about like flyers, mailer,
Yeah,
conferences.
I actually think mailers and flyers um, are probably more beneficial today than even what they were 5 years ago. I think we get so much digital content today. You'll be lucky if you get 20% of people, 2 out of every 10, open up your emails, right? But when you see something come in the mail, more than likely you open up more than 2 out of every 10. And if you can just be creative with it, it's just a lot less competition. So yeah, I mean, I use it for all my businesses. With the clinics, and then for Smart Success Healthcare, we use mailers as well. We primarily do, like, because this is an online company and we've got a pretty wide array of audience, we typically send mailers to people that have already been customers or have come into our world already. We don't typically send random mailers to just everybody that's a physical, like it's kind of hard now with so many different, professions. But in your community, if you got a community of 50,000 or 20,000 or 60, like it doesn't cost that much money to be able to get your message out to those people and have it be tangible. Like it's something they're holding. Like that's definitely something that I think people should be doing, more of. It used to cost a crap ton of money to do this stuff, right? Because you would have to do the graphics and do this and do that and pay companies to do it. You don't got to do that anymore. Just talk ChatGPT. I want to create a mailer. This is what, right? I want the graphics to look like this. Here's my branding, blah, 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 blah. Voila. And then send it to the place, let them print it out, and then say, hey, mail it out. They'll charge you a couple $100, maybe $1,000, $2,000. But if you get 4 plan of cares from it, you 4x your return.
Absolutely. So yeah, using it for retargeting, I agree with you. I think it definitely stands out. And 20% of open rate, I think that's like a dream come true. It's definitely it's a lot less than that in our world. So speaking of actually mailers, so today I got a letter from orthopedic surgeons came to my office advertising their services. I've never seen that before.
Okay.
Right? We have a therapy company in the same building. And it's interesting, the orthopedic it's a surgeon office that's in a different state. We're in New York, and this is from Jersey, targeting like a therapy clinic to promote their service, right? Or, whatever, injections, surgeries, etc. So you usually see therapists doing that. So that's interesting. So I agree with you. It's different. It's like you're an outlier these days if you do mailers versus digital marketing that everybody else is doing.
And here we are on the podcast talking about them. It worked.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely worked because I haven't seen anybody else doing that, So you mentioned that you're in network. Why did you decide to be in network? And are you in network with all insurances in the area, or are you selective about the insurances you know?
Yeah, look, in the beginning, when I started in 2005, that was like, you didn't even think about doing cash. That's not what you did. So I didn't know any different. I just thought that people would never pay for services if it wasn't using their insurance, right? Today it is a little bit different, but I have to be honest with you. I'm not a pro cash only, believer. At the end of the day, I don't personally have insurance, but I understand that there's a lot of people that pay heavily to have insurance. When I did have insurance, I was paying $1,400 a month for my family of 6. So when you're paying $1,400 a month, which is basically, or maybe not today, but it's a mortgage payment for many people, right? You want to use it. And I believe that you're missing out on a lot of people if you're not taking insurance. Now, I totally understand the cash, direction. And I have a lot of clients that they only do cash, and that's totally fine, right? But I also have clients that have crushed it doing insurance. Now, here's the issue. The issue for insurance is if you're only treating them and the only transaction you have is based off of what the insurance is paying you, and you're only doing traditional care, you might make money, but you also might not make any money. There might not be any profit to go around because we are dealing with a third party that is in control of the compensation that they're giving to us. So how do you make it work? Insurance to me is a marketing tool. I call it a loss leader. Okay. I understand that somebody's going to come in, you're going to use your insurance. All right. I'm probably not going to make any money on the front end. Right. But on the back end, when you come in, you see my process, you see my protocol, you see what things I'm trying to get you to go towards. You start to buy into those things. Those are additional services. I treat it very much like a dentist's office. Okay. Which is where, hey, I'm going there because I have this insurance. I know my insurance is not paying for the whole thing, but I want the results. I don't want the pain anymore at the root of my canal. I don't want that. So this is what the insurance is going to cover, but you want the result. This is what you're going to have to pay if you want that result. By the way, if you want to have a tooth, no problem. Here you go. Take what the insurance is going to do, right? Okay. It's really the same thing. And ever since I started doing that, and just treating practices, whether it's mine or practice I consult for, just treat it like a dentist's office. Like, don't make it a big deal. Don't deny them because they have their insurance, but also let them know that your insurance only gets you this. So let's just take it for what it is, but then let's also not do insurance therapy. Let's do physical therapy here. Okay. Let's not make your insurance dictate what it is that we can or can't do. So a lot of people struggle with that because they don't want to deal with money, but I have no problem with that. It's something I've just trained myself on and train my team and my clients. And I think I'm not against insurance. I think insurance is great. I think it gets you clients that you wouldn't get. So
I agree with you. I personally think you need to do your research. You got to look at your socioeconomic factors, right? If you're in a neighborhood that average salary is $120,000 and higher, I think cash-based practice is perfect for this type of area, right? However, if you're in the area where average income is below $50,000, I just don't see how it's going to be sustainable, right? So
yeah,
combination of both, I think, is the perfect model. Depending on the area, you should never not offer cash-based services. And I think the same thing about insurance. There are exceptions, right? We have, like in Manhattan of New York City, it's possible to have a cash-based practice, right? In Silicon Valley, it's possible, right? In a few other places in America, right? But majority of places, I mean, I don't see how it could be sustainable, right?
yeah.
So
And I think another thing too. I think even beyond that, and I 100% agree with you, but I also think that where are things trending, right? Are people having in the next 12 to 18 months? Do you think people are going to have more disposable income or less? To me, it seems like they're going to have less, right? So you know, we're. I'm just thinking when I started my clinics, Dimitri, they were average copay was $10 to $15. Today average copay we're looking at $30 to $50. So I think that we need to acknowledge the market right now. Number one, disposable income is going down for the majority of people. Okay, not everybody. Okay, some they're crushing it, but a lot of people aren't. Okay, so disposable income is going down. For a lot of people, their insurance benefit is not kicking in until they hit a certain level of deductible, and so basically, healthcare on a whole is just costing more across the board. Rich people, poor people, middle class people. All right. So now, how do we actually get people care? Here's what I've seen. I have clients in my programs that the lowest amount that they can pay is $1. And there are people that come in and buy like $1 something from me. It could be a book. It could be, you know, some training, this, that, whatever. I also have people that have paid upwards of $100,000 for one offer. The people that pay $100,000, I went back and I looked, okay? It's about 15 people. They've taken me up on like the big stuff, okay? 90% of them started at $1. They came in at $1. So I say that to you all because I think there's this gray area in between that a lot of times we're not talking about. It's trust. And when you don't trust me, you're not sure if you want to commit to even a $50 consultation fee. Okay. But after you work with me or you work with you or any of your staff, and you're like, wow, this guy's the real deal. Now it's not hard for them to go into a 6-week plan of care. Okay. Like I do everything in solutions-based offers, but it's not hard for me once the trust is there. So I think it's very important that everybody have something that is a low barrier to entry that can get people some level of result, whether it doesn't have to be anything you're touching them. I'm just talking some level of awareness, some level of enlightenment, some level of optimization for their body, for them to understand what's going on and get them that result. And it's cheaper than a copay. And maybe it doesn't even require them to come in. They just get it. And I think a lot of people are missing out on that. It's either nothing or it's do the full plan of care. It's nothing or come in and spend the $50, $60 with your insurance to get the consult. It's nothing, or you got to pay me $290 for a cash-based appointment. I think we need to start working on the lower dollar value stuff to get people in the door, because the one thing I've realized is this: it is much harder to get someone to go from $0 to $1 than it is to get someone to go from $1 to $1,000. To get someone to become a buyer is the hardest thing that you could do. So understand that, respect it, appreciate, create more things to allow people to actually go through the process of taking out their wallet or their purse, typing in those digits, the expiration date, and the CVV, and hitting submit. I'm telling you, that's probably the best advice I can give any of you right now if you're getting started or you're trying to grow.
Thank you. That's a great advice. I agree with you. Ability to sell for physical therapists is the biggest barrier to actually becoming financially sustainable. Like, they just don't know how, because they used to like, oh, we're here just to help patients, which we are. But in order to help patients, you need to become financially sustainable, and it's hard if you don't know how to sell your services and sell, things in your clinic, whatever it is that you're selling. Greg, I want to take us to your to you opening up second and third location. At what point you realized you needed to have a second and a third location, and what steps did you take, and how long did it take you to have that second, third location?
Yeah, I'll tell you guys this. I think going from 0 to 1 is the hardest. Going from 1 to 2 is terrifying as well. Going from 2 to 3 really wasn't, right? So we opened up our second location within 2 years of having the first up. It really just comes down to what the audience is saying, and in our case, our locations were about 20 miles from each other. So we started to get enough feedback from our audience saying that, hey, if you had a location down here, we have, whether it's us or we have our circle of influence, our friends, family members, coworkers, colleagues, could potentially use that location. And so that was really the first step of just getting feedback from your current audience base, not getting feedback from people that have not paid you anything and are telling you something on social media, but get feedback from people that have actually paid you already. And so feedback is the breakfast of champions, I like to call it, right? And people will tell you. And so basically we were, at our peak, we were in 3 different counties. We were in Pasco County, we were in Hillsborough County, and we were in Pinellas County. And it's just getting feedback, from people of, and also from your big 45, your big 45, which are your providers, other businesses, other community groups. They start to tell you, hey, I feel like there's opportunity here. And then that's really how we started to dive into it. But yeah, it was kind of nerve-wracking when you're going from obviously 0 to 1, because you don't know if you have it, you don't have if you have what it takes. So that was tough. Going from 1 to 2, obviously, especially if you don't have the systems and the processes, what's going to happen if this happens? What if I'm not there? I can only be in one place at, one time. But then once you go through that process of creating your systems, then you realize that this is not really that hard to do. It's really just doing your due diligence to make sure that there's an audience there that would buy your services and your offers.
Yeah, makes sense. Absolutely. I mean, I personally think the first location is the hardest, and then you use your experience from the initial location to utilize it for the secondary and hopefully tertiary location, etc. Greg, can you tell us about your coaching program? What inspired you to start that program? And tell us about your clients that you serve, and maybe give us example of biggest success story.
Oh, geez. Okay. Yeah. So I started coaching Dimitri in 2009. I'll give you the 3-minute story. So in 2009, my clinics, I now had 2 clinics, right? And we were primarily growing through organic Google traffic through my blog. Honestly, I was doing marathons and I was running, and I had a private blog, and my website developer said, "Hey, why don't you put your blog on your website?" And that created massive explosion. So there was buzz in the therapy community in Florida, that, hey, this guy's crushing it. And so that's what started the consulting. I did that from 2009 to 2015 of just helping private practices. And that's really all I did. Um, I was doing that while I was still growing, my clinics. My staff, I have two clinicians that were in Flex DPT programs, and they were telling me some of the issues that their classmates were having because now, uh, cost of tuition is going up, et cetera, et cetera. And people are starting to freak out a little bit. And so they asked me if I would be willing to mentor them. And I said, yeah, I'd mentor them. Just have them come to the clinic, because I worked 2 days a week back then. And they said, no, Greg, because we're a Flex DPT program. Not everybody lives here, blah, blah, blah. I was like, okay, what do you want me to do? So we started a YouTube channel, and it was just to mentor my two staff members, friends that they were in Flex DPT programs with. And so that's what kind of got this whole thing started. In 2015, I probably had over 100 conversations with students, people all over the country on the phone. I did it all free. And I did it for free until people stopped respecting my time. You'd get people that would, hey, can I have a call with you at 4 o'clock? Now, remember, I've been busting my what for the last, 10 years to build my clinics. And now, the thing I wanted was time. Now I got the time. I had time to date my wife, to do this, to once the kids go off to school, to go to breakfast date, do this, do that. And I was not doing those things so I can talk to people. And then people were ghosting me on the calls. And my wife had a good come to Jesus moment with me and said, are these strangers more important than me? And I said, you know what? From now on, I'm going to charge. And that's what started Smart Success PT. And so that's what started it. And it then moved to Smart Success Healthcare because I started doing events in 2017, 18, 19, and random occupational therapists and speech therapists and dietitians started coming to the events. And I said, all right, let's rebrand it. So we rebranded it at the end of 2019, going into 2020. And that's really what started it. It was primarily online courses and a live event every year. Now, it's mostly workshops, and I work with people, at my homes, so, I have a couple houses here in Florida. I've got a place in the Georgia mountains, and clients just meet me at my place. I bring my team with me, and we work together for a couple of days and help them with building out some leverage piece in their business. That's how I do it. It's kind of fun,
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Sounds really cool. Thank you. Thank you for this feedback. And Greg, so what leadership lessons from your journey would you pass on to clinicians aspiring to become entrepreneurs?
What leadership lessons? Here, you know what? Let me give you this. So every single week that I do a call with my clients, I make them recite commandments. And my number 6 commandment of my 10 commandments is that we are mission based in what we do. And so I would tell you all that the faster you can make it about a mission and not about you, it's probably the best leadership advice that you can get from me. And I'm not claiming to be the greatest leader in the world, but obviously I've done some pretty cool stuff, all things, considered, right? But the faster you can make it a mission and not about yourself, the more your movement will grow. Make it a mission, make it a movement. Okay. People want to get behind a mission. People want to get behind a movement. You want to know what else? I think it's helpful. You all as therapists, you don't like to talk about money, but what you can do is if you can make it a mission, then you can break it up into 2 categories. And this is what I tell my clients. Okay. And this is what I do. I do vocational work and I do avocational work. My avocational work is for people that can't afford my vocational work, but everything is moving towards a mission. And so the more money I make in my vocational work, I can then use that and use those resources to allow me to spread my avocational work more. 90% of the people that are on my list, I advocate for them. This is an avocational hour. 10% of the people on my list, they are part of my vocation. And it is in your best interest to charge as much money as possible in your vocation so that people will pay attention to you and they won't ghost you. I have no people canceling now. Okay. And charge as much as you possibly can in your vocational work. It will actually get you better results with people, because wherever your treasure is, that's where your heart will also be. That's where your effort, that's where your intention will be. Okay. But then you use those resources, because I believe God has commanded us to be amazing stewards of what we have been given. And you use that to do more avocational work. And so if you can take those things that I just said and understand it's a mission and it's not about me, people will just want to be led by you. They'll want to be led. But when you're working for someone and you know that you're working to take care of their Porsche payment, or you're working to take care of their big vacation they're taking to Tahiti, well, that can get really deflating, right? Okay, because you're working to make their dreams come true. The goal of a leader is to figure out what everybody's dreams are and figure out, how am I going to get you to your dream? And if I can get you to your dream, then probably by default, my dreams are going to happen. I just don't talk about my dreams to people, but I'm talking about my dreams between my ears all the time. I'm just talking about their dreams. That's probably the best leadership advice I can give you. I don't know if that's any good, but that's it.
I love it, actually. I think I was going to ask you about culture, like how do you maintain team culture? But I think explains that as well. If you have a mission-driven workflow, right, and people have a mission to strive towards, right, they have certain goals to achieve, this is how the culture shapes itself, unless there's any other feedback on that.
I think the only other thing I would tell you is that, and I understand not everybody's going to be able to do what I'm about to say, but I do believe, at least from my company, I do believe that we need to identify who is the entrepreneur, which is probably going to be me and you, right? Who are the employees? But then who are the entrepreneurs? So I think this is a big reason why, like just a while ago, I came here to my studio just for this, right? And I came to the office and nobody's here, right? And the reason why, and actually I looked in Slack and they let me know, hey, we went home early, blah, 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 whatever. Okay. Here's the deal. My team was just working all weekend. I have a team of entrepreneurs. So let me explain the definitions for everybody, just so that you all understand what is the culture of your company. Just know what it is, and then stop trying to fit round pegs into square holes. Like, don't do that. Okay, just figure out, who are you and what are you trying to build. For me, this company, I have 5 companies. Okay, this company is entrepreneurs. I have entrepreneurs that work with me in person, and I have employees that are virtual. Okay, so here's how it works. An entrepreneur is someone who takes ownership and operates a business, but you don't do so at any financial risk. That's an entrepreneur. I am an entrepreneur. Dimitri, you're an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who takes ownership, operates a portion of the business, but we do so at a very high financial risk. Entrepreneurs, you don't have to worry about that. But I'm expecting you, and I'm also giving you the perks of what it means to be an entrepreneur. I just came into the office 15, 20 minutes before this interview. After this interview, I'll shut everything down and I'm going home. That's it. Because I'm an entrepreneur. I've taken on the financial responsibility. I own the business. I operate the business. We don't trip out when it's time to work on a Saturday or a Sunday. But at the same time, if we want to leave at 2 o'clock, we leave at 2 o'clock. It doesn't matter. Okay. All right. You don't do that as an employee. As an employee, you don't take full ownership of the business. You take ownership of your task. You operate the portion of the business, and you don't do so at any financial risk. As entrepreneurs, we take on everything. Okay. We don't have to do everything because we have entrepreneurs and employees to do it, but we take on the full financial risk. Figure out what is the culture of your company. Figure out what the people are that are working for you. What is it that they want? I had one of my employees tell me, this is probably about 3 months ago, said, Greg, just want to let you know, I got a job offer. I said, okay, cool. And it just kind of started like, breaking up. So it pays $35,000 more a year than what I get here. I said, hey, if you need to take it, take it. So you're not going to try to convince me to leave or stay? I was like, no. Because what we have here, you know what you are here. Over there, you would get that, but you're an employee. Over here, you get what you get with me, but you're an entrepreneur. You already know the pathway. If we do this quarter, this quarter, this quarter, this quarter, you're going to make probably 5 to 10,000 more than them, but it's not a guarantee. I mean, you also don't have to put up the money that I got to put up every single month to make sure everything's good. I said, just think on it. Just understand it's two different things. And whichever one you decide, you decide. It's okay. It's okay. Next day, they called me back and said, I'm staying. Guys, I know the culture of my company. I know who we are. I know what, if I have entrepreneurs, my responsibility as an entrepreneur is to create as many offers and solutions and create ways for them to have minimum downside, maximum upside. Okay? You got to know what you're dealing with, you guys. That's it. That's how you build the proper culture. Just know who you are and then find those people and don't get the other people.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Thank you, Greg. If people want to find you, what's the best way to find you, contact you?
Yeah, I'm Greg Todd, PT, most platforms. smartsuccesshealthcare.com is our site. I'm sure there's stuff on there. You can find me on Instagram. That's probably the platform that I do most of my stuff on. I have a YouTube channel that we just restarted. And that's Greg Todd. So you can go to Greg Todd Unscripted. My podcast is Secrets for Success Podcast. And if you want to hear me rant and blabber on, you can go there as well.
All right, beautiful. Greg, it was a pleasure talking to you and learning about your businesses. And I hope to stay in touch and learn more.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah, it was great. And thank you for the conversation.